All right, that was the scene of Darvin Ham's first victory. First victory. It was not a championship. It was not a clinching of a playoff berth. It was his first victory. And look, I get it. First-time head coach. It's the Lakers. There's a lot of scrutiny on this team. Kurt Helin, Pro Basketball Talk. I thought, I'm not as cynical as I sound right now. I actually thought it was a nice little glimpse into an NBA locker room. What did you think of that scene following Darvin Ham's first win as a Lakers coach?
I expect nothing but cynicism from you. I don't know, Michael. Actually, I'm with you. Look, you got to celebrate along the way, right? You got to celebrate the victories, and it's your first victory as a head coach. Darvin Ham should have been a head coach 5 years ago. So he should have been a head coach a long time ago. So good for him, right? Like I'm glad to see them celebrating this. I'm glad to see them having a little bit of joy in what has not exactly been a joyous season for the Lakers to start.
Yeah, it hasn't been a joyous season for them, but they still have their head coach, okay? They still have him. He's there. A few games into the season, they have not moved on. On the flip side, I can't wait to talk to you about this, and I know Doc can't wait to talk about it either. The Brooklyn Nets, I guess the only surprise for Steve Nash is that he didn't last until mid-November. He didn't last past midterms. Yeah. Like, midterms came in early. You out. They got him out. How do you see this situation unfolding in Brooklyn now, and how did it unfold to get us to this point?
You know, Steve Nash is going to go back to Southern California and Manhattan Beach and walk up to get coffee in 65-degree weather in February, and he's going to be okay, man. He's going to be all right. I think he's probably happy to be out of that situation a little bit. I don't know. You know, we'll see. They bring in Ime Udoka or whoever, and that's, we're going to have that conversation. But they bring in whomever. Steve Nash didn't cause the problems. He couldn't solve their problems, but he was also not the cause of. Look, Steve Nash isn't causing Ben Simmons to be afraid of getting fouled and not shooting. Steve Nash isn't the guy who put together an undersized team that can't defend inside and has little rim protection. The issues that are there are going to be there for whoever the next head coach is. And I don't know that just Kevin Durant being Kevin Durant can overcome it. Does it strike you guys that way? Like Kevin Durant being Kevin Durant isn't going to be enough with this roster.
Yeah, yes. If you were a nominally competent coach, I cannot stand all of this nonsense and sadness about Steve Nash. Steve Nash was a terrible coach. He was nasty. He was awful. They never should have hired him. It was a ridiculous level of Hall of Famer affirmative action. And I don't think he should have had those MVPs anyway. It only happened because they got rid of hand checking. He's never even taken a team to the finals. Steve Nash shouldn't have been anywhere near a coaching staff unless they were taking end of the year pictures. So is it enough to have a Kevin Durant? Yes. If Kevin Durant is your best player, you shouldn't be getting swept that consistently. If Kevin Durant is your best player, you should be able to think that you could get to the Eastern Conference Finals. And he never accomplished any of those things. Is Ben Simmons a problem? Of course he is. The guy doesn't know if he wants to play. Kyrie Irving a problem? Yes. He doesn't know if the earth is flat. He doesn't know if the earth is round. He doesn't know what his background is. He doesn't know anything about himself. And he clearly doesn't know anything about defense. But Kevin Durant is enough for someone to be successful, and Steve Nash should have been fired a year ago. I'm happy that he's gone. I'm happy that Ime Udoka is there. And my question for you is, can Ime Udoka take what he did in the second half of the season with the Celtics and turn that into first half success with this Nets team, given the personalities he's working with?
Sure, he can do it if they trade him Robert Williams, and then he can start him in the paint. Like, that was what turned them around last year. Two things happened. Quietly, people around the league will tell you, they got rid of Dennis Schroeder, remember, and they put the ball in Marcus Smart's hands, which Marcus Smart isn't the greatest playmaker ever, but that flowed so much better. And Marcus Smart and then Robert Williams turned them into a defensive juggernaut the second half of the season. I don't know that exists. I think that's your challenge in Brooklyn. You're going to outscore some teams. You can be better. Kyrie Irving finds his groove. Kevin Durant. They do have shooting. Like, you can put up a lot of points with this team. Push comes to shove against the elite teams of the league. The elite teams of the league, or last night with Zach LaVine, you can't get stops in crunch time. You're going to lose games.
Yeah, I'm just so fascinated. I mean, there's so many institutions of higher learning in New York. I feel like every department could go into the Brooklyn Nets and just have some case study. I mean, psychology could do it, journalism, like law. I mean, there's so much stuff with Brooklyn that consider this, Kurt and Jason. They're bringing in a controversial coach, and nobody's really even focused on that part of it. We're talking about Kevin Durant and Kyrie, and the Anti-Defamation League is got eyes on him, and Durant wanted Marks and Nash gone. Now Nash is gone. Is Marks next? And Joe Tsai tweeting about Kyrie. I mean, it's amazing that all this is happening. And Ime Udoka, who was the first coach that I can remember of in the history of the league, who's been suspended for a season, comes in and you're like, okay, yeah, Ime Udoka. Kurt, is this the right move? Bringing in Ime.
If you don't care about bad PR, sure. I don't think it's on it. Let's be honest. It also does not send a great message to the women in your organization. Just to be blunt. I mean, this is a guy who, if you're suspending the guy who took you to the finals for a year, and we don't know all the details, everybody's got pieces of the puzzle. Nobody's seen the picture yet. But right. If the Boston Celtics are feeling that they've got to do that for their team and their culture and their organization, I think he's a great coach, but this smells of desperation of, I don't know where else to go. Well, it smells of desperation. It also smells of, let's be honest. Guys, you know who Kevin Durant wants to be coach? Because I think I do. Like, it's pretty obvious what's going on here. But I think he can do the job. I think the backlash is coming, and I just don't know if the Nets care at this point. They've put so much into making this work that they're bringing in whoever they can. Jason, is that how you're seeing it?
Look, I got to be honest with you. This is the reverse of how you get fired on your day off, right? Because it's like, how do you get hired in the midst of a massive suspension that the likes of which we've never seen before? That says something. Crazy. It says something about the Nets. It says something about Boston. But one thing I can say, and I do believe this about the Boston organization, I do believe this about the Nets, I do believe this about a lot of different organizations in the NBA. They do background checks. They vet people. Whatever it is that Ime Udoka did, and I've said this all along, it clearly wasn't something enough that he could be fired for it. Because if it was enough to fire him, they would have fired him. They clearly couldn't find something that was actionable enough to fire him, so all they could do was suspend him because they didn't want the guy in the building.
Yeah,
so if it's not fireable, I guess the Nets thought it was clean enough.
But you know what, Kurt and Jason, I'm not sure that's true in the firing. I think their language yesterday, the Celtics, according to sources, the Celtics will allow him to go without compensation. I think that confirmed that it was the reason they didn't fire him was financial. Like, if we fire you, we're going to have to pay you something. Like, they cut his salary in half with the suspension. He agreed to it. Mm-hmm. But if they fire him, I mean, the guy just signed a 4 or 5 year contract, and then you fire him, you're going to have some huge settlement, or you're going to have to pay him up. And you might get a lawsuit. He might sue you. So you wait it out. You wait for somebody to come in and scoop him up, which the Nets are about to do. You don't even ask for a second-round pick. You just say, hey, you just hope nothing changes their minds. You don't want to say anything that offends them. This is off of your books now, and now you saved yourself truly millions of dollars by the Nets having their dysfunction. I think that's why they didn't fire him.
I'm kind of shocked. I expect there to be the equivalent of the non-pick pick, hey, it's a top 55 protected second rounder. So if it's one of the last 5 picks, you can have it. But like, they're going to throw one of those in.
Right.
So if we don't think the Nets are any good, who is? Who is? I know it's so early in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah.
You know, you can't really get a sense of, is it Milwaukee? Is it Boston? Even in the Western Conference, the Warriors lost again last night. They're 3-5. But if you had to look at it, Kurt, is there anything you've seen that makes you kind of go back on your preseason predictions?
I'll tell you the one team that jumped out at me that I was not high on going into the season, and I wrote a whole story about not sleeping on them anymore. Suns look really good. The Suns look very, very good. They seem to have
They do.
I mean, they won 64 games. They won 64 games. We shouldn't be shocked, right? Like, they went into the playoffs last year. Up until that blowout game against Dallas, we kind of all were, it'll be the Suns, right? And then we got way off of them. They've gone back to being who they are. Chris Paul isn't maybe quite himself, but Devin Booker is playing out of his mind. Cameron Johnson dropped 29 last night. They put him in for Jay Crowder. It gives them more offense and more athleticism. Everything's clicking there. DeAndre Ayton's just doing his thing, man. Just doing his thing. What contract problem? I don't know what you're talking about. In fact, when we were in the locker room, we tried at one point somebody to ask him about how they're playing this season, how they got past what happened at the end of last season. His exact words were, "I don't talk about last season. I talk about this season." They have put last season behind them and want to show everybody that that's not who they are. And so far, so good. They look like a team that's going to challenge again at the top of the West. And the Warriors are 3-5; they'll be fine. Like, there'll be other teams there, but the Suns impressed me.
Kurt, I got to ask you this though. It seems like the Suns rise at the beginning of every season, right?
Yeah,
this is why I don't usually pay that much attention to the NBA until Christmas. I don't usually care about the NBA until Mariah Carey starts singing in that Santa suit, right? Because until then, it's basically just extended practice. What is your faith that the Suns are going to be able to keep this going? We're going to have the inevitable Chris Paul injury. We're going to have the inevitable slowdown. Do you think they've got enough gumption going right now that they could end up a number 1 or a number 2 seed and actually advance to the finals again? Because they always look good at the beginning of the year, and then they always end up stumbling.
So what you're saying is you're looking forward to the Mariah Carey versus Taylor Swift top of the charts battle? That's what we're looking forward to now?
Pretty much. That's what matters to me.
I have belief in Monty Williams, man. I believe that if one coach, and by the way, Chris Paul, I guess, goes into this with locker room leadership. If guys were going to be able to get them past all this and kind of get them focused again, I think it's those two guys. I don't know that they can beat a peak Warriors team. Whatever the Clippers will become, they're treating this like a marathon. Will talk to me in January. Like, there's a whole lot of those kind of teams. But I think the Suns look like a team that'll be in the mix. Now, by the way, if we're talking about guys that impressed me when I saw them in person, Zion. And not just because that guy's a physical force of nature. Dude, he is passing really well right now. He is drawing. The game has slowed down for him. He's drawing the defense. He's seeing where he's got to go. He's not just making the simple pass. He's kicking 2 ahead. They got shooters all over the place, Trey Murphy, and on down that line. Even Jose Alvarado, like, guys are knocking down shots, but you can see the game has slowed down for him, and he's really matured as a player.
So you know what? Last question for you then, because I it was easy to say it last year because everybody was on Ja Morant, same draft, number 2 pick, Zion number 1. Hey, Ja Morant is better than Zion. We haven't seen Zion. We forgot about him. If you had to pick one of those guys, you had to pick one. You can only have one between Zion and Ja Morant. Who do you pick, Kurt?
Long term, I'm probably still taking Ja, but my concern is literally with both of them, which one of them holds up longer? Because I think they can both be forces of nature. But Ja's style of play with that, he is not the thickest guy. And he's throwing his body around. It is so much fun to watch. He is the most entertaining player in the league for me. He makes me stop on League Pass every time. I will go see him every time I get the chance. I worry about his long-term longevity. And Zion, I worry about his long-term longevity.
Right.
Michael,
All right.
Michael, I got to jump in real quick and say this. My choice between the two, if either one of them could get like a knee transplant from Megan Thee Stallion, then I'd believe in them. But their health, the inconsistency of their knees and their legs to play this game, I can't put much stock in either one of these guys right now.
Yeah, that's the risk.
Okay.
Man.
Doc, see, this is why we got to take a break. You bring up Taylor Swift and Mariah Carey. So now I'm thinking about Mariah Carey and Taylor Swift. Now you're bringing up Megan Thee Stallion, and I'm flustered. So, you know, Kurt, good to see Kurt. Kurt is really great. Music, please, music. We'll check in with you later. Oh, my goodness.
Take care, guys.
Thank you so much.
Good talking to you.
Hey, thanks for watching Brother from Another on YouTube. Make sure you hit subscribe before you leave, and be sure to watch us 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern Time on Peacock. Appreciate you.